In the kingdom of Bharatpur, King Vikram Singh was famous for his charity, but he lived by a singular rule. He only gave to those who could solve his riddles. Wealth wasn't a gift here, it was a prize for the sharpest minds. Kishan, a local Brahmin, was running out of time. He was a man of deep learning but very few coins, and his daughter's wedding was just days away. Without a sudden change in fortune, he had no way to pay for the celebration. His wife suggested a different approach. Since the king's tests were legendary for their difficulty, she urged Kishan to take their two sons, Ajay and Vijay. If they faced the king as a family, they could combine their knowledge to find the answers Kishan might miss alone. When they arrived at the royal court, the scale of the palace was overwhelming. They stood before the throne, a small family in simple clothes, surrounded by the intimidating opulence of the monarchy. The stakes were absolute. The king's rules were famous across the land. Solve the riddle and receive whatever you ask for, or fail and leave with nothing, leaving the daughter's future in ruins. The king began with a story. A princess was forced to choose between four skilled men: a weaver, a linguist who spoke to animals, a scholar of the ancient texts, and a master archer. The princess herself came from the Kshatriya warrior class, and the king asked Kishan which of the four men was her rightful match. Kishan and his sons immediately huddled together, whispering as they weighed the social standing and skills of each suitor against the princess's own background. Kishan stepped forward. He argued that the archer was the only choice, as his Kshatriya lineage matched the princess's own warrior heritage, ensuring a union of equals. The king nodded. The logic was sound. It showed that Kishan understood the social and traditional bonds that held their world together. The king turned to the eldest son, Ajay, with a physical impossibility. He asked how a person could carry both wind and fire wrapped inside a piece of paper without the paper being destroyed. The family huddled again. They debated the fragility of paper, trying to reconcile the heat of a flame and the force of a breeze with a material that seemed to fail against both. Ajay looked at the paper differently. He realized that the solution wasn't in the material itself, but in how he chose to shape it. He told the king that a paper fan carries the wind, while a paper lantern, a candile, holds the fire. Both use paper to control the elements, rather than being consumed by them. It was a practical answer to an abstract problem. By showing the king how a simple object could be transformed, the family proved they could apply their wisdom to the physical world. Simultaneously, the king challenged the youngest son, Vijay, with a paradox of character. Find a man who has never told a lie, but has also never told the truth. Instead of whispering with his father, Vijay turned his back to the throne and began observing the people gathered in the court, looking for something the others had missed. He walked into the crowd and gently led a man toward the king. Vijay pointed out that because this man was mute, he was physically incapable of speech. He existed entirely outside the choice between truth and lies. The court went quiet. Vijay hadn't just solved the riddle. He had demonstrated that the king's verbal traps could be dismantled by simply looking at the reality standing right in front of them. The king sat in silence for a moment before he began to applaud. He stood from his throne, his face shifting from a mask of judgment to a look of genuine admiration for the trio standing before him. He was impressed by the answers, but even more so by how they had arrived at them. He saw a father and his sons using their collective wit to navigate a system designed to make people fail. The king announced that he wouldn't just give them a small donation, he would personally sponsor a grand royal wedding for Kishan's daughter, ensuring the family's needs were met for years to come. The celebration that followed was the grandest the village had ever seen. The worry that had once weighed Kishan down was replaced by the sound of music and the relief of a secure future. As the festivities continued, the family realized that the gold was only a byproduct of what they had truly achieved. They had walked into the palace as paupers and walked out knowing they could outthink the most powerful man in the kingdom.